Part 1. The opening gambit. How does it start?
It kicks off very classically. Both players move their king's pawn forward 2 squares. One e4, one e5 in notation. But basically grabbing central space.
Standard opening move. Then what?
White brings out a knight, the one near the king, immediately putting pressure on black's central pawn.
Okay.
Black defends, bringing out their own knight. Then white develops the bishop, placing it on c4, aiming right at black's traditionally weak spot near the king, the f7 square.
And black just copies that.
Black mirrors it, yeah. Bishop comes out to c5. Looks symmetrical, pretty standard so far.
But then move 4 changes everything. White plays pawn to b4, sacrificing a pawn way out on the wing.
That's it, the Evans Gambit. It looks weird maybe, giving up material so early, but it's a calculated investment.
An investment? How so?
Anderssen is buying time tempo, as it's called in chess. By sacrificing that pawn, he lures black's bishop out of position and gains time to build this powerful pawn center.
Ah, okay. So black takes the bait, captures the pawn with the bishop.
Yes, black accepts the gift, moves the bishop to b4. But Anderssen doesn't waste a second. He pushes his pawn to c3.
Attacking the bishop that just took the pawn.
Exactly, forcing it to move again. And then, the main idea. White pushes the pawn to d4. Suddenly, white has these 2 pawns side by side controlling the center of the board.
Right, that's the payoff for the sacrifice pawn, central control.
Precisely. Black captures that d4 pawn with their pawn, which is normal. But then, move 7, black makes a questionable move. Pawn pushes forward to d3.
Why is that bad? It blocks white from taking back, right?
It does block, but the source materials are pretty clear this is an inaccuracy. Black is spending time pushing that pawn when what they really need is to get their king safe. They lose a crucial tempo.
Kind they needed for castling.
Exactly. Development and king safety are paramount, especially against an attacker like Anderssen. Pushing that pawn to d3 while it looks active just helps white.
And white pounces immediately.
Instantly. Queen comes out to b3. Now, there are 2 pieces attacking that weak f7 square next to black's king.
Ouch. How does black defend?
Black moves the queen out to f6, covers f7, but it also blocks in their own knight a bit.
And white keeps pushing.
Keeps pushing. White advances the e-pawn now to e5. This attacks black's queen again.
Another tempo gain for white.
Right. The queen has to move, retreats to g6. Look at the board now. White dominates the center, has pieces aimed at black's king, and black is already sort of tangled up defensively.
Wow, that escalated quickly just from that 1 pawn sacrifice. Okay, what happens next? Part 2, I guess.
Right, part 2. Development issues for black. White, remember, already castled way back on move 7. Got the king tucked away safely. Now, Anderssen brings a rook over to the e1 square. Joins the action on the open file. The notes mention maybe rook to d1 was slightly better, but the idea is clear. Bring all the pieces into the game.
Meanwhile, black is still lagging behind.
Still struggling. Black finally moves the knight to e7 on move 10, sort of preparing to castle, but it's slow.
And white doesn't let up.
Not at all. White plays the bishop out to a3, a fantastic square for it puts pressure on black's pieces, controls a key diagonal, and makes it harder for black to castle.
So black needs to castle now, right? Get the king safe.
That would be the logical move, but no. On move 11, black makes another, well, questionable decision. Pawn to b5.
Another pawn sacrifice. What's the idea there?
Desperation, maybe. Trying to open the b file for their rook, perhaps distract white. But our analysis says it's just not sound. Castling was essential.
King safety first.
Always. Especially in this kind of open tactical game. Sacrificing another pawn when you're behind in development is just asking for trouble.
And white takes it.
Of course. Queen captures the pawn on b5. White's queen is now deep in black's territory.
Okay, but black gets a shot in. Rook moves to b8, attacking the queen.
Yep, little counterpunch.
Yeah.
White's queen has to retreat, moves to a4. But notice, it still keeps pressure on black's position, attacking the bishop.
So black has to save the bishop, moves it to b6.
Right. And now, white calmly develops the last minor piece. Knight comes out to d2. Anderssen's army is fully mobilized. Every piece is developed and contributing.
And black's move 14.
Black plays bishop to b7. It develops a piece, puts it on a decent diagonal. But the commentary is really critical here.
So why?
This was black's last chance to castle. The absolute last moment to get the king out of the center. Instead, Dufresne develops another piece.
A fatal decision.
It really sets the stage for the disaster. By leaving the king in the center, black gives Anderssen the target he needs for the brilliant finish. Anderssen has total coordination. Black's king is stuck.
Okay, so the attack intensifies now. Part 3.
Part 3. The knight's sacrifice. Anderssen sees the king is stuck. Sees the lack of coordination. Move 15. knight hops into the center to e4.
Strong square, what does it threaten?
It's a powerful outpost, and it immediately attacks that pawn. Black pushed way back on move 7, the d3 pawn. Black needs to defend that.
How does black respond?
Black makes what the source calls a fatal illogical error. Queen moves to f5.
Why is that bad?
It just weakens the king's defenses unnecessarily. The queen was actually doing a decent job defensively back on g6, moving into f5. Well, it invites the attack.
And white obliges.
Immediately, bishop captures the pawn on d3, and now there's a huge threat.
Which is?
White is threatening to play the knight to f6. That would fork black's king and queen, winning the queen on the spot. Game over.
So black has to move the queen.
Has to run. Queen slides over to h5 to escape the immediate fork. Black's is just reacting now, trying to put out fires.
If black had tried to castle now.
Too late. The notes show white still plays knight to f6 check. And after the pawn takes bishop, check again, and the queen is lost anyway. Black is completely busted.
Okay, so the queen runs to h5, and now, move 17, the first big firework.
Here it comes. Anderssen sacrifices the knight. Knight takes the pawn on f6, delivering check to the king.
Wow. Giving up a whole knight. Why?
It's ambitious. The analysis calls it maybe a bit too ambitious, actually. The main point is to smash open the lines around black's king, specifically the e-file for the rook.
But it's risky.
It is slightly risky because taking the knight also opens the g-file, which leads towards white's own king. So it gives black some counterplay, but Anderssen calculates it's worth it.
Black has to take the knight, right. Pawn captures knight on f6.
Forced, g-pawn takes f6, and now white recaptures with their own pawn. Pawn takes f6. So white now has this really advanced pawn deep in black's camp, still attacking things.
And black uses that open g-file immediately.
Immediately. Rook slides over to g8. Suddenly, for the first time really, white's king is feeling a little bit of heat along that open file.
So Anderssen needs to strike fast before black can organize a counterattack.
Exactly. The clock is ticking for white too, in a sense. Which leads us to part 4, the immortal combination.
This is where it gets legendary. Move 19. White plays. Rook to d1. That seems quiet.
It looks quiet, but it's profound. The source calls it a brilliant move. Why? Because Anderssen is bringing his last reserve piece into the attack.
The rook that hadn't moved yet.
Precisely. He anticipates the combination that's coming and makes sure every single piece is perfectly placed to participate. It's all about total coordination before launching the final assault.
And black falls into the trap.
Makes the final, fatal mistake. Move 19, queen takes the pawn on f3. Black grabs a pawn, maybe thinks they're simplifying.
But they miss something.
They missed the real threat, and they walked right into one of the most famous combinations in chess history. There's a defensive try, queen to h3, but black missed it.
Okay, the trap is sprung. Move 20.
Fireworks begin. Rook takes the knight on e7. Check.
Sacrificing the rook?
A full rook sacrifice. Black has to capture. Knight takes rook on e7. Dufresne must have thought, okay, I weathered the storm. I'm up material now.
But he was wrong.
Dead wrong.
Yeah.
Move 21. Anderssen immediately follows up. Queen takes the pawn on d7. Check.
Sacrificing the queen.
The queen. The most powerful piece on the board. Given away freely. This is the absolute heart of the combination.
Why give up the queen?
To force black's king out into the open. Black has to take the queen. If the king tried to run to f8 instead, white has bishop to e7 checkmate right away.
Wow. So black's king captures the queen on d7. The king is now stranded right in the middle of the board.
Completely exposed. And the mate comes quickly now. Move 22. White plays bishop to f5. Check.
But wait, isn't the rook on d1 also checking the king now?
Exactly. That's a double check. Both the bishop and the rook are attacking the king at the same time.
What happens in a double check?
The king must move. You can't block 2 lines of attack at once, and you can't capture both pieces at once. The king is forced to flee.
Where does it go?
King moves to e8, trying to run back towards safety.
But white keeps checking.
Relentless. Move 23. Bishop moves to d7. Check again. It forces the king one step further back to f8.
And that's it.
That's the final position.
Yeah.
Move 24. White plays bishop takes the knight on e7. Checkmate.
Wow. Game over.
But here's a final thought to chew on, something the analysis brought up. Remember how Anderssen's first big sacrifice, the knight on move 17, was called a bit too ambitious?
Yeah, slightly risky because it opened a line to white's own king.
Right. So the question is, does the absolutely stunning forced checkmate that resulted justify that initial risk? Or, in strategic thinking, should you always prioritize absolute safety and solid position over a brilliant but slightly risky shortcut?
The allure of the spectacular finish versus the prudence of minimizing risk. That's a tough one.
It is. Something for you to think about when you're facing a complex problem and maybe see a flashy, high-risk, high-reward path versus a slower, safer route. What's the right call?
A great question to end on. That's all the time we have for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us.
See you next time.